Okay guys, so what we're going to do now is take what we learned with the hue saturation tools and apply it practically. So this is the image again that I asked you guys to color correct, and more than likely, well, the way you guys did it on your own may have been effective, but a lot of people tend not to apply it locally. So I've already done my global color correction. That comes first. Now again, if you did it in Capture, that's fine. Uh, you don't have to do the global here. If you didn't do it in Capture, then you apply a global correction, and the next step is do the local color correction. So let's just zoom in here. Going to zoom in to norm space. And ultimately, I'm going to use my eyedropper tool to try and find some skin tone. That's good, and then skin tone, that's bad. I mean, I can already visually see that in his, oops, too far, in his face, around his nose and his lips and things like that, I find that if I take a look at the eyedropper tool, that there are areas where magenta is more. So if I come up to here, again looking here, around his nose, magenta is 73 and yellow is 66. And again, remember, yellow needs to be 10% more than magenta, or magenta needs to be 10% less than yellow. Ultimately, you should not have more magenta than yellow. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to identify areas of good and bad skin tone and add another set of eyedropper sample points here. So I've identified good skin tone. Let's take a look at his forehead. I've got more or less 10% more yellow than magenta, so that's good. And I'm going to right click on number 3 and change that to CMYK. There we go. So 3, 37, 42. So that's more or less correct. We've got 10% cyan from magenta, and then we have magenta 10% less than yellow. So 3, 37, 42. That's good. Let's find some bad stuff. And his nose, essentially. Yeah, there we go. We'll switch that over to CMYK. There we go. 74, 72, 62, 18. There's your bad. Sorry, there's your bad, and there's your good. What we're going to do now is take our hue sat layer, and we're going to call it skin. Okay, and what we're going to do is go into the magenta channel. We're going to take the positive eyedropper tool, and we're going to select all the bad skin tone, which is here. And then we're going to deselect all the good skin tone, which is ultimately here. And that's going to make sure that only the bad stuff, the magenta and the red, is selected. And then I'm going to click on hue. I'm going to use my arrow keys for this, guys, because it's more fine-tuned in terms of control. I'm going to take a look at this point here when I'm doing it, and then I'm going to basically add, using my up arrow, points of hue until these numbers pretty much balance into what they should be, which is 10% more magenta than yellow. There you go. Now, more or less, a lot of people don't quite get that there's an area of subtlety here. So for instance, yes, these numbers are exactly 10% different, but there's some areas that this is applied to a little bit too strongly. So, you know, it doesn't have to be exactly 10. It could be, you know, 6, 7 points different. Okay? But what I'd suggest is it needs to be a bare minimum at least 5% difference. So even 61, 67, that's 6 points difference. That's going to be totally fine for this. Okay? So if I turn that layer on and off, I can see that all the weird red and all the magenta in Norm's face, the center of his face, is now gone, and he's more color balanced. But here's the thing that everyone forgets or just doesn't want to do for whatever reason, and that's because, well, people just forget, let's put it that way. What they do is they have taken a adjustment, applied it globally, even though we're trying to do this locally. So what you want to do is invert your mask, and with a white revealing brush, apply this only to the areas that you actually want to affect. What do you do in Photoshop? Brush. There we go. And now that's only being applied to the skin. And a lot of people pretty much think it's green right away, but what you need to do is take a minute because your mind is automatically filling in that information as the opposite color, which of course is green because to correct the magenta, we've actually created green, applying it to his ears. If I turn that on and off, you see the difference. Now, a lot of people won't be subtle with this and they'll cover up lips and things like that. Make sure you're not covering up lips, so I'm going to hide this on the lips. So that his lips are the natural color. I'm going to make sure it's not on his eyes and stuff like that. There we go. Again, natural colors. There you go. His skin has been corrected. A lot of people also forget that it also needs to be applied to the hands so that it is actually consistent and natural. There we go. Like so. And if for any reason you find that still a little bit too strong, you can always just lower the opacity of that layer. So there we've gone in and color corrected one person's skin tone. We need to do it for the rest as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is the exact same thing we did before. We're going to come in and we're going to identify areas of good and bad skin tone on the daughter. So let's see. There's good. And there's bad. And let's change these to CMYK so that I know it's for local. And we'll grab another hue saturation layer. We're basically call this skin girl. We're basically going to add a layer per person so that we can control this individually, because not everyone needs the same measure of control in terms of skin. Back to magentas. Again, there's our bad. Let's add the bad. Subtract the good to make sure that we don't over adjust the wrong areas. And again, we're going to change this so that the values have less magenta than yellow. There you go. She's now balanced. Oh, look at that. Apparently I made a second layer for some reason. Skin, oops, skin girl. Again, invert that layer, make sure it's black, and make sure it's only applied to the skin tone of the subject that you're currently working on. You don't want this adjustment to be anywhere else, because if the person has red hair, for instance, it'll change the color of the hair. If they have a wardrobe, it'll change the color of the wardrobe. If they have makeup, same deal, it'll change the color of the makeup. And we don't want that. A lot of people spend a lot of money to make sure the dress they're wearing or the hair they've dyed is the right color, and you don't want to change that. They just don't want to look really weird and red on their skin. There we go. And finally, the last, I'm not going to show you because you guys can apply it yourself, but you kind of get the concept. What we're doing is we're making local adjustments to do this locally as opposed to globally, and that's how we color correct people in an image.